At 7:03. We have quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Do we have anyone from the public here for public participation?
So it's Shane McCarthy. I'm just viewing again as I did last week. I'm going to stay on until my daughter grabs me for her softball practice. So I will be here.
Nice. Hey, Shane. Thanks.
Just observing. No, pleasure to join. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you know what I got to do? See, Joe, I'm still learning host duties here. I gotta claim host. There we go. Look at that. Now I got the power.
Good job.
Look at that. Okay. First order is to approve last week's meeting minutes. They're sent earlier. So here they are. If I'm gonna read them, if someone wants to make a motion.
Yep, I move we approve. Go ahead. Go ahead, Frank.
But did Frank Leone attend? I don't remember him.
Yeah, he was there.
He
Frank
was there.
at the last meeting, correct?
Okay, because Thursday, March 12th. Is that correct?
No, it should say Tuesday. I'll make that correction.
Okay.
Someone want to move to approve with that one change to the date?
I move we approve.
My second.
Anyone opposed to approving these? Seeing none, we'll approve with that one change to the date. Thanks for catching that. Okay, we have Captain Hudson with us this evening. He's going to talk about fire alarms. So I think, Captain, we'll leave it up to you. I was seeing, Joe, did you send me anything? Here we go. You had sent some info regarding, so I can have this up on the screen if that helps, Captain, or you tell us how you want to do it.
Yeah, we can leave that up on the screen and I can kind of walk you through what's going on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this, and thank you for your flexibility. We were supposed to come in, I think, 2 weeks ago. And
Could you speak up?
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I'm having problems hearing a bit too.
Yeah,
Okay,
me too.
could you get closer to the mic, maybe?
That's okay. How about now? Can you hear me now?
A
Yeah,
little better. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
you sound very muffled.
yeah. Agreed.
I'll try and speak loud and clear. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to me tonight, and flexibility. We were supposed to come in 2 weeks ago and present a couple of requests. Priorities have changed due to emergency work that has happened. Are you hearing me so far? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep the volume up. Thanks.
Okay. So originally we were going to ask for 2 video detection equipment systems. The 2 intersections, Prospect and North Avenue, and Main Street and North Avenue. It turned out Main Street and North Avenue, the video detection system was working properly. It was a traffic controller that was the problem, which was a lesser cost. We replaced that within our budget. The one at Prospect and North Avenue is something that's going to be replaced, I believe, in the next few years on a Main Street project. So we thought we could get away with that one. These video detection systems cost about $25,000 to $28,000 to replace. So we're going to have 2 requests for $28,000. As we moved along, we realized that we had other issues out there that became emergency issues. And these were, we had intersections going into flash mode, emergency flash mode, which is when, for some reason, the system is not working properly. The brains of the intersection says, okay, something's not right. We're going to put you in the flash mode, and forces us to come out and fix it. The biggest one of these that became a bigger problem is Montrose Ave and Salem Street. Originally, that would go into flash. About 3 weeks ago, went to flash. We made a quick reset. It held for a couple days, went back into flash, held for a day, and then we got it to the point it would not reset. So it was in flash mode. We determined it needed a new traffic controller, which is which is about
No,
$7,000.
No big deal.
Just let me know if I'm going too fast. So, new controller for Salem and Montrose was a priority to get the intersection back up and running, around $7,000. So we figured we'd put that request into our capital outlay because we did not have any money left in my budget to replace it. We had already replaced 2 controllers this past year, which is a big cost for my small budget. As we moved along in that intersection, we discovered a detection camera was also not working. The camera facing Montrose Avenue was not working. So to replace that one camera was probably $7,000 to $10,000. What happened with that intersection is that's a different intersection where is part of what is called an adaptive system. It is tied in to the 5 signals along Salem Street and Audubon Road. And how that system works is 2 of those signals are owned by the state, the on-ramp and off-ramp to 95. They own those signals. We own the other 3, Salem and Montrose, Salem and Pleasure Island Road, and Audubon at the driveway to the Sheridan. And when they installed those signals back in 2015, one thing that happened was there was significant backup. Everyone trying to get to the office buildings on Audubon Road coming northbound on Route 95 would get off again to the left-hand turn on Salem Street to Pleasure Island Road. It was done like say 5 to 10 cars to make that left-hand turn. And that was backing traffic up all the way along Salem Street and onto the highway. So bad that the slow lane or the exit lane on the highway was backed up with 25 to 30 vehicles. State police had concern. We had a concern from the fire department. So we had the town's traffic engineer company, VHB, come in, and their solution was a system called Synchro Green, which is an adaptive system. So what it does is it watches the intersection for the 24 hours during the day and determines when the heaviest flow is and adapts the intersection to move the most amount of cars when that's happening. So in the case of that left-hand turn in the morning, say from 7:30 to 8:30, there's about 500 left-hand turns going there. So that's a lot of cars to move through. So when this system was installed, it solved that problem. We stopped having backups along Salem Street. We stopped having the backup on the off-ramp, no more backup on the highway, and the system has run pretty much flawlessly since it's been there. The problem is now that we have an issue in our signals, the ones that we own at Montrose and Salem, the adaptive system is not working. So we are kind of bound to fix it because we are tied in with the state and with our agreement with VHB. So VHB can watch this intersection, and he saw it go in the flash, and he saw us fix it a couple times to get it back up and running. And then he saw it when we couldn't get it back up and running, and he made a phone call to me. And the funny thing is, he said, we haven't spoken 5 to 6 years because we have not had any problems down there. But now we have problems. Now that controller has to be fixed and the video system has to be fixed. The issue is the controller is a specialized controller. So right now there's a temporary controller in there to keep the intersection working, but the adaptive system is not working. They have to order a special controller that is on order. The video detection system, they do not make that camera anymore. You have to update the whole system to one camera. Right now, there's a camera that faces each approach, and now it's going to be a uni camera. So that's a cost of $25,000 to $28,000. I spoke with them yesterday to get the latest update on it, and we're thinking the request should be for $40,000. Replace the traffic controller, replace the video detection system, and a little bit of money there for police details and anything that might pop up. But there is pressure to get the system back up and running.
Captain, did you just say that request is 40,000 now?
Yes,
Not 18, not 18?
correct. Based on the fact of If it was one camera, it was $7,000, but now it needs a whole new video system, which is 25 to 30,000.
Does the state bear any responsibility here? I mean, this is an intersection with a state highway.
Right, the state bears responsibility on their intersection. So they own the signals at the off ramps, 2 of them. That's their responsibility. That's something that was decided back when those intersections came into it, that the town would own 3 of those intersections.
Oh,
Okay.
yikes.
Do you want to,
Yeah.
so is this second one off the table then, or because of that increased price, or is this still on the recabling?
Yeah, we're gonna take that off the table. The priority is definitely Salem and Montrose.
For 40K?
Yes.
Okay.
Yikes.
So I know it's a unexpected hit, but originally we were asking for 28,000, 2 video detection systems at 2 separate intersections. And I guess, you know, it would have been nice if the state took ownership of those 5 intersections, but they weren't going to do it back then. So it's on us. If this had happened at the state intersection, it would be on them.
How long does it take to install the new system?
My guess would be a day once they get the parts.
So labor is
Yeah,
the problem here.
So
Okay.
if this
No.
is if this is FY25, does that mean if this was approved, you couldn't order anything until the fiscal year starts this summer? That you'd have to limp along until then?
right. And it was a different intersection. It's like a standalone intersection. That's not tied into other intersections, not tied into the state. We could limp along. That's why this has become the priority.
Well, I just asked because this is an FY25 list, so I'm asking more of probably a mechanics thing because I don't know how it works with, like, we're approving a fiscal year 25 expense. If you would have to wait until fiscal year 25 actually starts to incur this expense, if it was approved, you know what I mean? Like that's, I guess it's sort of just a process question more than anything, I guess.
Is there,
Generally-
excuse me, is there any lead time from the supplier to you, or is this something off the shelf?
I believe the video system is off the shelf. The controller is on order.
Okay.
So that should be in the works fairly soon, hopefully this week.
Phil, if I may,
Yeah, Joe.
yeah, hi, I'm Joe Bertrand from the liaison from the FinCom, along with Lori Wheeler, who's on the.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
meant to introduce you. I'm
Don't
sorry,
worry
I
about
didn't introduce you and Lori. Hi, Joe. Hi, Lori.
This sounds more like something that has to be done right away, doesn't it, Mr. Conway?
I would do it right away, sure.
Doesn't this make more sense to get a reserve fund transfer from the FinCom than have it in for a budget for 2025 fiscal year? So-
Depends
sounds
on-
like, I mean, that's what the reserve fund transfers are for, any kind of emergency actions like this. Lori, I don't know what you think about that, but it just seems to me this has to be done right away.
I agree with Joe. I mean, that sounds like it's imminent. It's
Yeah.
important. It's an emergency, and that's what they're there for.
Right, and we're meeting like every other week, so it's not something you'd have to wait long for. You could get that approval. I think, what are we meeting next week? I think
Yes, yeah.
So what budget does this come from if you have?
it's a reserve fund transfer. Every year, the FinCom has a certain amount of money for essentially emergency matters
Okay,
that the FinCom controls. And it really is for emergency matters, like when Greenwood had the problem with the water and those kind of things.
yeah.
It's like things that have to be done right away, and this sounds like something that has to be done right away.
So Joe,
How much money is in that reserve fund?
A lot.
okay, so Joe, you would just, you would take this out of our hands and deal with it in your own emergency fund, or is this?
Yeah, that's what I,
Something still,
that's what it
so-
sounds like to me, that it has to be done right away, not in
Yeah.
fiscal year 25.
Right,
Wait,
that's
so-
why I had asked, because I was afraid that if it was right away and you had to wait, then it wouldn't be much good in our hands, which is what I was thinking.
yeah, I think this sounds like a good move.
So Joe Conway, what do you think? If you could just contact Steve and it could be dumped through there?
Yeah, I can have that conversation with them.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it has to be done right away. Mr. Hudson, isn't that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's that, let's,
And is it all 40,000?
Yes.
Okay,
Do you, can I pose a question? Does anybody have an issue if I pose the question?
Go for it, Joe.
The only reason why I ask is because Captain Hudson has a little of this, my group has a little of this, we kind of share all the responsibility. So knowing that this intersection is like this, on your other two requests, or anything headed on this road?
Cutting in and out.
Yeah, kind of in and out, Joe. Sorry, we didn't hear that last part.
No, that's okay. So what I was asking is if this intersection is depreciated to the point where, you know, they essentially can't Band-Aid it or bubble gum it to get it to work, the other two intersections that were originally requested trending in that direction? That was my question.
So Main and North Ave, and then North Ave and Prospect were the two on the original list.
Right.
Right.
Are any of those you think sort of next on the list that you think you're gonna? You said Main and North was you were hoping to get as part of a bigger project.
Yeah, I think Main and North is okay. Prospect in North Ave is running without detection right now. So that system,
Without what? Sorry, Captain.
without video detection, vehicle detection.
Without visual. Mhm.
Yeah, so that, that was the original request. I guess I apologize because I thought by eliminating those two things, I could go for this money for this intersection. So that intersection is still an issue. Prospect about that.
It was a $28,000 original ask for North Ave at Prospect. That was on the original list.
Yes.
So, okay, and we haven't done anything really with those asks yet because we wanted to talk to you and hear you first. So, yeah. I think based on the conversation, this Salem Montrose is, is time sensitive, that waiting until fiscal year 25 doesn't probably make a lot of sense for the town. And that emergency reserve fund sounds like a pool of money you can access if you ask the right people.
Mhm.
Right, Joe?
Joe, it's the way to go.
yeah, it's the way to go. I really do. I don't.
Do we
I mean,
need-
Gonna stop sharing so I can see people.
I have a question.
Frank, yep.
Is there, are these systems inspected by the state in any way, shape or form?
Along Salem Street, I do not know.
Okay. And you think you could limp along with the two that are in there, Main and North Ave and Prospect?
We could limp along. Yes. Salem Street,
I mean, for another year?
Good answer.
so into fiscal year 25? Is that?
It's fiscal year 25. Yeah, that
Yes.
starts this summer. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
we could-
Yeah, but you would come back in fiscal year 26 for those two.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so their function, they could function for another fiscal year. That's what you're telling me.
The video detection system at North Ave and Prospect and Churches is not functioning. So we've already kind of limped along for a year without it.
Yeah, explain to me that.
So what that means basically is that the vehicle detection system detects that vehicles are approaching a stop line and says, okay, here comes a car down North Ave, here comes a car on Church Street. Let me give North Avenue a red light both ways, and now let me give a green light to Church Street. So a detection system. The old style were called loop detectors in the pavement. And the car would drive over the loop and it would tell the traffic controller, oh, there's a car waiting here on Church Street. We need to give them a green light. Video detection was kind of the upgrade of that. It's more efficient. And what happens when you're not running on detection, the intersection is running time-based. And what that means is we go in and we put times to the controller to make sure everybody gets a green light, but it doesn't run it efficiently. So you can sit on a side street, say Church Street, and North Ave can stay green without any vehicles there because there's no detection system to make it move. It's going to move on time-based. So it's a lot less efficient moving traffic without detection, if that makes sense.
Given that I use North Ave and Prospect frequently, I would prefer that to be more efficient, but that also has the connection with the train line and the gates come down, and I have once very painfully, and maybe even a second time, the gates never went back up. And I know that was a pain in the butt. I had to call the police. They had to call the MBTA. It took forever to get us out of there, turn us around and cross in another place. What is the relationship between that intersection and the MBTA and the gates and the traffic signal? Like, how does that all tie together, and what could we leverage with the state on that intersection about improving the intersection, improving the signaling?
So that, with the train approach, it's called preemption. And the train approaching preempts the signal. So the signal's operating normally. Green lights on North Ave, green lights on Church Street and Prospect. Train comes in at some point on the track, inbound and outbound. It hits a signal that says, hey, we're going to be coming through this intersection. The gates come down and the traffic signals will stay green on North Ave only. So North Ave can go along with the tracks. Church Street and Prospect will not. They'll have red lights. And there's a red light on the left-hand turn from North Ave up Prospect Street. That's railroad preemption. The issue with the tracks, with the gates, was all MBTA, nothing to do with the traffic signals. So every time that those calls would come in, we would go down and check the signals to make sure they were working appropriately, not giving a green light if the gates are down and a train is coming and we get a green light to Prospect Street. That would be on us.
Yeah, no, so I understand that part, but is there, because it's like a shared space, is there a way to share finances or share how that, because they're so interconnected, or is it truly our track ends here, we have one other inch of leeway and that's all that we cover, and there is no interaction?
Right. I don't know of any interaction. I can look for some. I think the only interaction is that the equipment that signals to our traffic controller that the train is coming and puts our signals into the appropriate mode. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to put it I think this hits on what you're asking. So when we went through the train gate quiet zone thing where they had to shut Broadway, essentially, from the railroad's position it was on us to design, finance, and pay for a compliant intersection. So we would have been responsible for the gates, even though they're there to keep their trains safe. So I would imagine that the railroad would probably, if you can get a hold of them, first off, they probably wouldn't want to share funds or offer anything. They'd probably say that it falls on the responsibility of the town.
Yeah, no, I figured that, but I thought I'd ask.
So it's always worth the ask for sure. They want to help contribute, we certainly will take a willing partner.
Yeah, but you read today, the MBTA doesn't have much money to spread around.
Are there any other questions for Captain Hudson?
Well,
I'm fine.
Sam? Frank?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Captain.
Great, thank you very much.
Joe, I made you co-host.
All right, I'll share it in two.
Yeah, for Joe and Lori, welcome. We've made good progress on our list. I think we started off with a little more than $8 million in asks. We've whittled it down to about 2.3, I think was the last look.
Yep.
But we have a number of things that are highlighted that we had a banner meeting last week, and so we sort of left it. I think we're at like almost 2.2 right now, which is about what we approved last year. It would be this committee's goal to try to, keep up with inflation in some way and get a little more in capital spending every year when we're cutting 75% of the asks. But we do understand that there's not endless bowls of money in the town. So any direction the FinCom can provide us with the target, I think would help us tonight to try to get this list final, or to see if we can move anything back on if there's any more money. But the understanding is we may be at our limit. So do you want us to just go through the list, or what's the best thing for
Well, but,
you, Lori and Joe?
but, Lori, I looked at, paid particular attention when Dan went through his forecast, last week, and he had on there 2.3 for the capital, planning committee here, the capital outlay. I assume that that's a good number. And I think that's what we should go by. I don't know what you think, Lori. What are your thoughts?
Well, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I just muted myself and unmuted myself at the same time. Sorry about that. Joe, you have a better memory than me because I knew I was north of 2 million, but I wasn't sure where. So you said 2.3 is what you remember.
Yep.
If there's anybody's numbers that I'm gonna rely on, it's gonna be Dan's. So I think what we're saying is we're gonna recommend to these folks to bring us close to or 2.3 million as a respectable number to bring to FinCom and town council, correct? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
I looked at the forecast, I looked at it specifically for that. Because because Phil, I talked to Phil earlier, and I really looked specifically for what was Dan's number, and Dan's number was 2.3. And I know that Steve I think wanted it more like 2.2, but
2.0,
Yeah.
Joe, sorry to interrupt, but he last night was asking us to get to a 2.0 number.
2.0 is not realistic.
I just don't see that. I mean, I've looked at your list. I just don't see it. I mean, I don't know why it's 2.0 versus the forecast that Dan had.
I mean, what is Dan basing his forecast on? I mean,
Oh, good
If-
Lord.
without
If you wouldn't
going,
mind if I just wanted to interject, one of the things that has been coming up quite frequently when we're at FinCom is how poorly the cherry sheets are going to come in and how poorly the state funding is going to come to us. So that does make me hesitant because it's so funny. I did think I saw 2, but then I saw in Dan, so that's why I was unsure that I knew it was 2 or north of. However, I'm wondering if Steve is bracing for the fact that those numbers are not going to come in as strong as he
Yeah,
would like.
I think he was alluding to that, Lori, last night.
Yeah, they've been having a lot of preliminary meetings and the news is not good.
Yeah.
So,
When, generally, when do the cherry sheet numbers
yeah,
come
I
available?
was gonna ask that.
I wish I could give you that answer. I'm not sure. We can certainly ask Steve though and get back to you.
Yeah, how about a season? Do they come in the spring? They do, right?
Joe, I spent my 3-year absence from FinCom is now getting to me because I don't have all the dates committed in my head. Do you recall?
yeah, generally it comes in, fairly soon was after they pass the budgets and everything, but usually sometimes the budgets aren't passed till like, May or June, so.
Okay.
sometimes you don't even know.
Later.
Cherry sheets.
the governor's budget, because that's out, those cherry sheets estimates are up. But yeah, we do have to wait for the House and the Senate to
Yep.
put out their
And
budgets.
that could be the end of July.
Well,
Right. No,
that's
I think it has to be,
conference.
usually by May and June, early June.
Yeah,
It just,
I think the House is April and the Senate is May
Yeah.
in terms of when they put them out, which is a real pain that we have to have our budgets voted before we even know what the state gives us.
Well,
I could go
my,
on.
my understanding is that they meet in conference and they go beyond July 4th. That's what they're supposed to be done earlier, but the last few years, they take their time, unfortunately. And,
The
you would
the
expect,
reason,
you would expect more from a full-time legislature, but we're not
So-
we're not getting full-time attention.
So maybe we have, I know 2 million is a target and Steve's goal. We might have a little more than that, it sounds like, but why don't we go through the list? We may fall on a number that falls close to Steve's goal and meets some of the needs where we ended up. So why don't we do that and I know we had a number of highlighted items that we agreed we would come back to. We might have, I think a couple of them might be FinCom question highlights. So Joe, do you want to pull up your version 6 or do you want me to pull it up, or what's easier for you, Joe Conway?
If you have 6, I have something different because I was doing a little work on this afternoon. So do you mind just stopping me at the highlights that we have?
You want me to pull up the version 6 I have then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I have something a little bit different.
Yeah, that way, it might be.
So
Might be,
just
so just sorry, I was just gonna look. So this list. So this version 6, we're actually down to 2,063,000, but we have a number of items that sorry, I wrote that in while he was talking.
Phil,
Yeah,
you have the 200,000 for time and attendance blanked out. My version
Yeah.
6 has that
Yeah, I
still
was-
filled in.
sorry, hold on. I was putzing around before the meeting and I think I had another version saved and I was using the wrong one. Give me 1 second. Let me open up the real version 6.
I
hey,
think,
Phil, I'm
You
gonna
got it?
I'm gonna hop off of this laptop and go to my desktop. I have it right there. 2 seconds.
Okay. Sorry, just open it up. We have the cardinal rule of editing the wrong one. Here we go. Version 6, 2.2. There we go. That's the one.
yeah, so line 104 should
right.
2.2.
2.235, right?
Yep.
Here's the version 6. Here's the one. Sorry, everyone. Did Joe leave us? Oh
I
yeah,
think
he's
he's on
going
his
back.
desktop.
He's getting rid of his setup. Yeah. So blue, just for purposes, anything in blue has changed since we last spoke in terms of a number or a request. So we can talk about, and then yellows were what we were highlighting at the last meeting as sort of ones that we wanted to come back to. So I think we have to make some changes to the fire alarm based on that conversation. So we could start there, I guess, while we wait for Joe about the fire alarm since it's fresh. So they had, so this line is new. They had added this in, but sounds like that's going to go to a reserve fund request. And so the question is whether or not we would want to add back one of, he was recommending this one, I think, out of the two, the North Ave prospect, if we wanted to approve anything, or we don't approve any fire alarm requests. So there are any thoughts on?
I'm for putting North Ave and Prospect back on the list. A question about the amount. I thought he said the amount that he was going to ask of the reserve was 48,000.
That was for this. That was for this new item.
Okay,
I don't think he said that that was for the Salem Montrose ask that he was talking about for most of his presentation. And that he's gonna go to the reserve, he's gonna go and ask for that money somewhere else.
the whole amount.
Yeah,
Okay,
this was his original ask. Joe, are you back with us?
Yes, sorry about
Hey.
that.
That's okay. We were just talking about fire alarms since it was fresh. So this was the new one added, which we're going to remove based on the conversation, correct?
yes, it's going to
The
reserve.
traffic light control modules line item that you had highlighted blue. And
Yes.
then
Yep.
we're talking about whether or not we add one of, the North Ave Prospect Street back in. What do people think about that?
I'm with Frank. I'm in favor of adding that back in, if not for selfish reasons.
No, I think anytime you're dealing with those tracks, it has to be some kind of priority. It's a main thoroughfare. Yeah, I would argue to put it back in.
Yeah.
Particularly since he got the, he's gonna go to the FinCom reserve.
Yep. Okay.
Um,
Do you want to go to the top? Want to just start at the top then?
sure.
Yeah, let's start at the top.
So I guess points of note here, I talked to the chief after we met. We had talked about possibly reducing his ask to 2, we tried to figure out what 2 cars would cost with outfits and everything, radios and computers. He sent a response back, which I forwarded to the committee, effectively saying that if we could, and we had reduced this to about 164,000 based on just some rough math, right? Take the number divided by 3. And what he was saying is if he could, his original ask was 245. So if we could reduce and approve 170, he really wants to keep the 3 vehicles with the time delay in getting them and just keeping these cars on a rotation. He feels that this has worked out well for the department. And so what he was saying is if we lowered the ask, instead of 3 cruisers, he would forgo the EV and just get two of the regular cruisers and then a detective car, which doesn't need all the outfitting that comes with it. And so he's requesting 100. His revised request is 170,000.
That sounds fine. That's pretty close to what we set.
I'm not thrilled about losing the EV experiment, but in terms of getting this to work, like I understand that that's maybe a little bit much or a little rich at this moment.
Yeah, the thing about the EV I found out too, and maybe he mentioned this when he spoke to us, is that cost didn't include the charger. They still were going to need to put in a charger. So I think there was some things about the EV in general. They have an EV charger out back that the parking people use, but I think the approach would have been to park this in the garage with all the other cruisers, not leave it outside. So I think we may see that EV request in the future is what I'm gathering.
Yeah. Well, and if maybe a little bit more time, another year of that particular model being out of somebody else testing it, not us.
Exactly.
Right. Buying the first model of any vehicle is always a crapshoot, I feel. So so are people okay with the 170 then?
Yep, that's good for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, the next thing was the mower. You had mentioned in your one of your emails that you talked to Dennis Fazio, and he said if we had to choose one, he would prefer the larger 72-inch mower.
Correct. Yes.
So this 35 was removed and then keep the 40 in. What do people think about that?
Good. Good.
What didn't isn't the 62 inch mower more agile in terms of getting in and out of smaller spaces?
You know,
Well,
we gotta kind of leave that judgment to him.
Right,
It's a $5,000 difference, but he would know better whether the maneuverability was worth, you know, giving up something that's covers more ground, literally.
yeah, so, yeah,
I think
Joe,
he-
do you have an opinion on that, Joe?
I think he knew that, I think the way that, not to speak for him, but the way he looks at it is if one didn't go this year, he'd bring it back next year. So he just took the one that is in kind of the worst or the, more used, I guess. I can't
Okay.
think of the word that I'm looking for, but the one that's showing its age a little bit more than the other and shows that one.
Okay, fair enough.
Good.
Well, I'm also, if he wants to get the 62-inch later, if he thinks about it, he'll have 40,000 and then he'll have a little extra that, maybe becomes
Sure.
free cash next year.
Yeah, he's not nailed down to the 40. He's got to the 72. He can-
okay. Next, I think we highlighted this as our annual FinCom question, or whether putting an epoxy coating on a floor, a concrete floor to protect the concrete is a capital, and refinishing, the refinishing wood, and this is the Civic Center, is actually capital expense. And with that said, we did look back in our history, and we have approved refinishing of hardwood through this committee before. So, but I think there was a couple questions probably about just if it would be, if we wanted to approve this, if there wouldn't be any pushback from the FinCom for this type of work.
I don't see any pushback on that. I myself think that refinishing a floor is maintenance, but
Well, what we've got here, Joe, is a breakout of that 26,000 between an epoxy of the basement floor, which we didn't have a problem with as a capital expense, and the refinishing of the first floor for about a $14,000 portion of that 26 was what we thought might be a capital expense. Hi, Frank, go ahead.
Frank L.
Oh, Frank.
What's up?
Hey, Joe Bertrand. So I know this, half of this, the redoing of the basement floor in the Civic Center, they're actually going to put a special epoxy. It's not just refinishing. They're putting a new epoxy coating on it, and the lifespan is supposed to be 10 years. And with the traffic in that floor alone, that would be something new. That's not a maintenance item.
okay.
As far as the refinishing of the gym floor and the the rooms upstairs in the hallway, we've always done it as a committee. We've asked the question, like, what other budget? It basically comes under the DPW budget. There's no Civic Center budget that would carry that. So it would have to be carried under a different budget. It's always something we've done. And over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of money put into the roofing to stop the staining on the new floor. Obviously, the new floor in the big hall was done with different money, and it's beautiful. And the other two floors kind of just follow along with that. It is, from my experience, is the most trafficked building in the town. If I said that right? If you go in there every day at 10 a.m., there's so many people. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. There's a lot of people, and they haven't had it done in a while. So,
Can I ask Joe Conway,
Yes.
is there a separate revolving account for the Civic Center? Don't tenants pay rent and things of that nature?
They do. That's not something we control. That's a Dan McGrath thing. I don't know if that is set up and functions like an enterprise or not. I'm not privy to the details financially.
I think in our last discussion, we said that all that money goes into the general fund.
That's the way I believe it to be, yes.
it's an income producing property. It'd be great if the income they're collecting could go towards maintenance
Right.
of the property.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Why, it almost makes sense to have that, but if it goes into the general fund, then I don't see there an issue there for the civic, for this particular type of refinishing and epoxy. But it seems to me like it ought to go into some type of revolving fund and let them pay for it out of the tenancies. But anyway,
So can we agree that that 26,000 can really be 13,000 just to deal with the epoxy basement?
I think the ask is split up, but I believe the need is probably piggy bank one another, that it's both needed because of the heavy traffic. So we could certainly fund it. We could certainly vote to, right, like there was a 14 and 12 cut here, so we could certainly cut the approval for this if we wanted to 100%. I think it was 14 to epoxy and about 12 for refinish.
How long is the
I go with
refinish
that.
supposed to last?
Somebody said 10 years.
Frank,
Well, the epoxy in the
Well, I think the
basement is 10
epoxy.
years,
Oh,
so
I'm
that
sorry.
feels like cap. But the first floor refinish, is this a thing that we gotta do every year? Is it a thing that's done every other year? Or is it 5 years, right? Like, there's a difference in the value.
From speaking with from Dan at the Civic Center, it's a 4 to 5 year thing and it hasn't been done in a while.
Okay,
The epoxy for the basement for the 10-year term that you guys heard, that'll be for a basement floor. That's new. That hasn't been done 10 years ago. Right now it's concrete with paint on it. And it basically gets Joe Conway's group basically repaints it every couple of years when it starts peeling and going everywhere. But the epoxy will be more like a permanent. And Joe Bertrand, I would say, after talking to Dan McGrath and Joe and knowing a little background, there's a lot more activity at the Civic Center now with a lot more income. And that could be brought up to say, hey, Dan, if you're bringing in a lot more money, we need to make sure that these funds are going towards your maintenance. But at this point, my opinion, again, it's just my opinion, that's not, Dan's just bringing in the money, dumping into a general fund. He's not concerned about maintenance of the building because it's being taken care of the DPW.
yeah, it just seems to me makes sense that maybe that we ought to be looked at.
But again, it's a
That's all I'm
future
saying.
thing. For
Yeah.
this year, he still needs, those floors need to be redone because it's been a while and it is one of the most trafficked building in the town.
Yeah, I think-
When would this work be done and how long does it take?
It could be done anytime, really. We'd have to coordinate it with the Boys and Girls Club and some of the rental activities that are going on, but I wouldn't imagine it'd take more than a week. Honestly, it'd probably take 3 days, I would think.
Okay.
And then we would just time it so that we try to catch it when there's a down, like a down period of occupancy and use. Like when we did the gym floor, we had to do a little bit of it in October, because of the weather. We didn't want the humidity. So we worked with Dan there and essentially got the word out, far in advance so he could plan around it. I think the logistics to that isn't going to be, it won't be much of anything for an inconvenience.
What does the
so
committee
Frank
think?
Leone, is 14,000 enough to do the epoxy of the basement floor? And that is probably removing the original paint, right?
Yes, I don't know how it's actually done.
Yeah,
But from what I was told and from what I was shown, it's a good thick layer of epoxy and it's a permanent thing that's
Okay.
not going to peel like a paint job on a concrete floor. And again, like I said, it's said that it's going to last 10 years. And if for 14,000 you can get 10 years out of that floor,
yeah.
that's well, it's I don't want to say, I'm going to say it's a deal, but you might not agree, but
Yeah. Then I would suggest just to finalize this, that we change that 26,000 to 14,000 and that it refer just to the epoxy in the basement floor.
So,
I-
but why would they ask to?
I would disagree, but
Why are they?
Frank, hold on, Sam, go.
Let's hear that.
Yeah, I think that refinishing the first floor, once I was told that's a 4 or 5 year lifespan, I feel like then that puts it into capital. And if it's beyond its current, the previous time's lifespan, then it needs to be replaced and should be redone. So I don't think for to haggle over 12,000 on that when we're talking about uh, uh, gaps of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know if it's worth making a sticking point about this, saying that this needs to be an enterprise, a revolving fund. We'll stick you the 12,000 on the first floor and make you wait a year or two.
Yep.
I just, if it's going to last 4 or 5 years, then that's a capital expense to me.
Well,
Right.
all the paint jobs that we've ever looked at are expected to be 4 or 5 years at least, I would think. So, and we've dismissed those as operating expense,
Is maintenance rather than capital, right?
maintenance rather than capital. So I'm not sure that the duration of the endurance of that finish, at
Well,
least
I
in
mean,
that range.
police cruisers are 3-5 years, and
Yeah, I
we're
know.
calling that capital, right? Like, why is that not maintenance?
Because you're replacing
Keeping-
an asset, you're replacing an asset, that's why, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that that's.
Yeah. I'm not an accountant. I just look at this as, you're right, it's only a $12,000 difference, so it's almost,
Mhm.
we've almost spent that in our chargeable time.
My last comment, my last comment on it would be, is my observation, and that this would be more of a, a Joe Bertrand and a Joe Conway, is that in the last 10 years, Dan McGrath, as long as he's been there, has built that building up and the income up. So 10 years ago, the DPW was taking care of it because there was no income. Today there is income. It's not a great income, but it's something. It should be looked at so that in the future these things can be done. But we're not talking to, you're comparing it to the police cruises. The police department has a budget. The civic center has a budget of 2 employees. I think there's a difference there. The school department has a budget, the police department, the fire department, they have budgets. The
Mhm.
civic center doesn't have a budget. They have somebody working there who brings in money that goes into the general fund, and to expect them to have to pay for things to maintain at this point is a little reach, but in the future, we should definitely look at it. If he's bringing in $10,000 a week with pickleball players, then yes, he should pay for his own floors. But
Yeah.
that's not up to us. That's not up to us to see how much money he's making in pickleball. That's
He's
again,
my
that's a
driveway.
general comment.
Okay, my last question here is, why is the epoxy basement floor joined with the refinishing the first floor? I don't get the connection.
Both civic center, both covering us.
There's no connection from my understanding. They just both need to be done at the same time.
Yeah.
I
Because
just think
there's
it was
also
categorized as a building flooring project.
as a
right?
building expense.
Building, right, right, yeah. That's the way I read it too, just a flooring project at the civic center.
That
So-
happens on 2 floors.
It happens on 2 floors. So how do we feel about keeping 26? Are we okay? Or do we want to discuss any more about reducing this? Or removing it altogether? Not that I'm
Uh,
saying that's an option, but it is
No,
an
I don't
option.
think that's,
Yeah.
I would keep it.
So keep
Keep it, and I think the proviso would be to really clarify whether Dan can retain revenue and make his own expenditures. With at least, to the capital stock,
Dan, how do you feel about the 26?
Well, I'm hearing the arguments, and I guess I wouldn't spend much more time on it. I think it's 26 is acceptable. The enterprise, the effort to make an enterprise is out of our hands. That's somebody else's
Right.
decision. for another time. You know, Kevin Gill might have to get involved in that, and that's not something we'll ever really have any control over. That's fine.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
go with
Tracy.
the 26th.
26. Hey, Tracy,
Yep,
how do you feel?
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You
yep,
feel
sorry,
okay?
just shut the muted. I'm okay
okay.
with it, yep. Yep,
I'm okay with the 26. It gets a lot of use, and I think we could keep it in. I'm fine keeping it. So let's unhighlight it and move on. Okay.
Yep.
Next one. There was Joe, did you ever connect with the school department whether or not there'd been any freeze ups along this loading dock?
I'm
Everybody-
actually gonna recommend to remove that.
Good. I was going to
Um,
recommend we remove it too.
I don't have any, I have three of them that when we.
Sam's theorem. It's under a certain amount. I think I'm
Right.
surprised I'm surprised it made it to this round, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
How do
I-
people feel about removing it? Well, Joe's recommending it. We okay with that, folks?
If Joe says so, it's
yes.
okay.
I'll be bluntly candid, honestly. I don't have any record of it freezing.
Yeah.
If it did, not that $8,000 is anything to sneeze at, it's still a lot of money. But I think, between the two entities, we could come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Should it become an issue. So we're comfortable with that being gone.
Okay.
Next one was town hall trim replacement with the comment of whether or not we could push this to probably FY26. This meant, I would assume.
Yep. I go with
But
that.
it's out. It's zeroed out but highlighted. I can't remember. I can't really remember the reason why we kept it highlighted if we zeroed it.
It's cosmetic.
Um,
Are we okay keeping it out? And
Yes.
Joe, it's your home, away from home over there. So you okay with that? Like, it's an old building. I know, I am, conscious of that. And we want to keep it nice. It's our town hall, right? But we don't want it to
No,
deteriorate. Yeah.
we're comfortable there. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
You know, they almost sold that building in 1954, according to tonight's item.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
I know that they're gonna build the new town hall in front of what is the Bank of America, that parking lot.
Well, that's where the old one was.
Phil, can I make two more recommendations in the building section before we get out of it?
Yes, sir.
All right, so talking about it today, the senior center bathroom upgrade. We're gonna take that on ourselves.
Hey,
And
all right.
the same thing for the foundation repair at town hall.
Right here.
Yes, the 15.
Okay.
So does that come out of your budget?
It will. Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Thank
Okay.
you.
Just quick peek 2.2. So Maple Way, you had a comment that here and in your email that there's some support from the town council about, can you get into any of this? Like, what was the feedback, I guess, about, because we were questioning about the need for is it the cage there, like the fence, because there's some confusion about the fence that's there now.
This originally started, some of the parents from softball got in touch with myself, Dennis from Parks, Mr. Mayo. They sent a thing out to the chair of the town council and a couple of their members, basically seeing if there was any way we could assist them in getting a batting cage. And I thought originally I was told potentially outfield fencing. So knowing that we were going to have the conversation, we just put a very conservative placeholder on this. That's that $100,000 number that you have there. It turns out that what this will materialize into is essentially a batting cage or a hitting tunnel that needs to be set up. And then from my end, Dennis had mentioned, should there be any residual funds left over, he would use that and kind of replenish some of the clay down there on both of those two fields. So that's the scope of that project. I do know that there is a good amount of support from the town council level. And I think that they would like to see this potentially as one of the things stay in from their priority list. Well, that's kind of what that note is trying to get across.
But is the note for, but so you mentioned field, but that, you know, possible field upgrades opposed to an outdated. So I guess what is the ask for? I'm a little, cause like, you know, I know like the Doyle, one of the Doyle fields is in desperate need of care, you know, compared to the Maple Way, which isn't great, but like, so if this is a field request, then that's a different conversation than they're asking for a cage and new outfield fencing, but now it's down to 25. So can you just quickly repeat for me? Sorry, it's been a long day.
Yeah, that's
The
all right.
25
So
pays for a batting cage, or the 25 would pay for a fence?
this would be a batting cage and whatever the fencing set up to accomplish that needs to be. And then, like I said, if there's anything remaining in that, it would offset some of the clay costs that we would be doing down there.
Any thoughts, anyone?
Well, people who play
So-
softball vote.
I'd leave it in as it is.
It would be a complete, the fence would be completely torn down and replaced or repaired,
No, so this would be totally a total new
replacement, okay.
structure, really. So it would essentially be a fenced in, almost like a, if you can imagine like a really long like dog kennel basically set up for this. So, you know, it'd be a series of galvanized steel piping to create the outer structure. And then the netting or the fencing, whatever it is that kind of boxes it in so you can hit inside of it and not send balls all over the field. You're essentially creating a tunnel, more or less.
Oh, no, I get that, I'm sorry. I
Oh, no,
understand that, yeah. I'm talking
this would be
about,
totally
because
new.
wasn't it,
So nothing exists there now. So this would be a complete new feature to that field.
okay,
Um,
I thought we had fencing in that field, that's why.
We do. And this wouldn't touch any of that. That would all stay the same. This would be off, I believe the positioning that they were looking at was somewhere on the
Behind third base,
side. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be
So-
off,
Yeah.
out of play, but somewhere, you know, the
yeah,
pitchers can
this,
warm up.
yeah,
or
there's plenty of room
bash.
over there.
So should we change the title of this ask to just soft bail batting cage?
Yes, either that or you could use something like field improvements.
Frank
But it's not,
Leone,
so
is this,
Frank
but it's a
Leone.
batting cage, yeah,
Oh,
That's
I'm
gonna be
sorry,
the
Dan.
predominant.
it's not field
Yeah.
improvements.
I was gonna say, Frank Leone, is this the way you expected it to go? Is this what you were looking for?
Field improvements is a good term for it if they're just gonna do the cage. It's fencing is, they want an outfield fence. It's not gonna happen with this money. The way I understand it is they just threw the $100,000 number out there to get something.
Oh.
Even the 25,000 isn't for a specific item. It's for the cage. I'm not gonna say that it can be done in a cheaper way. If they want cages, they want something. And
Yeah.
they're just asking everybody they can talk to for something.
Yep.
And I would be curious to see if we gave them 25,000, what it was spent on. But they could, they need a batting cage and that's good, but
Yeah.
the 100,000, I don't know where they were going with that.
So
And it's up to Joe and, up to Joe's group, Dennis Fazio, because he's going to be ultimately doing it, what they want to do with the money. And if Joe says that, the 15 to 25 is what he needs to get done with, to make everyone happy, then I would go with that.
just so it's clear, the $100,000 was the number that we came up with, but that was everything. So
Yeah.
we're planning on needing to bring electric out there, dig utilities, you name it. We threw every potential cost at it because we didn't know, at least initially, exactly what the scope was that they were looking for. As the conversation started to happen, we realized that we don't need to tunnel electric, 400 feet across the field and put in, metered connections and stuff like that. So obviously it got substantially cheaper, but it's always easier to work down than it is to work up. So
This is Lori from FinCom. Am I allowed to ask a question or am I just
course.
like a,
Of
Go
course you
for
are.
it, Lori. Of course you
Okay.
can.
when we say they are asking for money, who's the they in the softball?
It's a good question.
Is it the parents?
I
Is
should-
it the schools? Is it the team? Like, who's the they?
it's a group of parents that are involved in, I think, but I don't know what the organization's actual name is, Wakefield Youth Softball.
Wakefield softball, right? Yeah, it's like the organization that runs the youth softball league.
Okay, and so this batting cage is therefore then just for youth softball, not for the high school, or is it for both?
If the high school plays there, I don't see why the high school wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. It's going to serve the same exact purpose. This is some of the same people that we ended up having conversations with were involved in getting the funding and ultimately the construction for the Blatts Field upgrade.
And it's not my purview, but as a former college softball player, maybe the prices for batting cages have gone up a lot, but did they get an estimate or Joe Conway, do you have an estimate for what the actual cage would cost?
No, I know that when we do fencing, we plan for it to cost around $100 a foot.
For the cage itself, not the fencing that you're not doing.
Yes, the only thing I can go off of is what I'm paying for a 10-foot fence.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Sorry I interrupted.
No
No, it's
problem.
okay, Lori. Ask any questions, please.
Thank you.
Appreciate them. Yeah.
So what do we take
Oh.
from that? Actually, is that too much, Lori?
I'm
25,000
old.
looks like a lot.
I'm old, so maybe the numbers in my head are old. I just wish that we it's not my committee, so I'm a little confused because I feel like that's a big number for a group of parents who want it for youth. And normally, when my kids were younger, we sort of sometimes did some private fundraising for that, or if the high school was using it, maybe some of that came out of the athletics budget. But I just might be out of my league here. I was just curious where it was coming from, and I wish there was
Yeah,
a harder
no,
number to go off of.
I think you're right on point. My concern here is that there's no formal ask here. I feel like this ask keeps on changing the more we talk about it. Like, like I always appreciate the library because they come in with the written quote and this is what we want to do. And this is like, and I know some of these other town projects, we don't have quotes, but we rely on Joe and his expertise. Like, I feel I a little uneasy about this line item. If the committee's fine giving them some money to use it towards something, then I'll support that. But I do have some concerns that it's just a lump of money with no set quote. Like we don't even know, this may be, field improvements could be all over town. One charge I would ask for Joe or whoever takes care of all our fields is to come to us, like, because the Doyle fields need major work. Maple Way needs major work. Like there's some big dollar signs, I believe, in the field improvements term. So I'm a little uneasy with just the general pool of money for this, but I get what they want something. So what do others think? Sorry, I didn't mean to go first. So what do the committee members think?
AI.
Go, Frank.
Well, there's a note that says the town council is supportive here. What does that comprise of? Did the softball association go to them? And the town council said, yeah, we'll go to bat for you, excuse the
Ooh, good one.
pun.
So lousy one.
I mean, why is that? Where do we get the idea that the town council is supportive?
So I've just been in the communication chains.
Okay,
And, we're here talking about this because they're supportive of it, essentially.
Will they give us more money to approve it? maybe we cut it, and if they really want it, they'll give us more than $2 million.
I don't know, it's that kind of bargaining. I don't think we'll
Okay,
get a
so Joe,
spot.
no one came to you specifically and said, "Hey, this is you would just sort of been hovering in the communications and seeing what they're talking about."
Right. I know that
Yep.
it's been, I'll put it this way, I know that it's been spoken about on their level.
Yep.
And, through that, we're tasked with trying to figure out if there's a way to make this something that's constructible.
I have two daughters that play in the softball league. Like I get it. Like I understand. I see these fields. I spend a lot of hours on these fields. Like my concern is the lack of specificity to the request. And I guess that's sort of my my big question mark on it, and with our hopes to vote on this tonight, I really don't want to bring this to another meeting for this one issue, in all
Right.
honesty. I hope that we can,
Yeah,
as a
I agree.
committee,
I
Yeah.
would say there's so much softness here that we remove it.
Sam, what do you think?
Hello?
I'm not sold on the idea. I think it was one of my original full cuts when I had gone through this prior to last week. So
And I just say that I feel like this group of parents is just going around to everyone looking to see where it's going to stick. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mhm.
The other thing is, I mean, what do when soccer and other sports need stuff, don't they raise their own money?
They all have their own budgets. I know the
Yeah.
Soccer Association has its own budget.
I mean, we see the signs on North Ave hanging up on the fences that they, the money that the soccer association's not coming to us.
Yeah.
Little League isn't coming to us individually,
Yeah, I agree.
But they don't own the asset, the fields.
The parents don't either. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but I think that they're trying to. I think they're going through the town council to get support for this. So, I mean, how much different is it than, a department asking for money? I mean, they are taxpayers after all, and they have a right to ask, but I mean,
If my kids were playing soccer and I was part of the soccer association and the softball association got $25,000, I wouldn't be happy about that because I just spent 2 years raising money for the soccer association. Why should they just get money without working for it?
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's a policy question. I mean, who, do private associations have sway here?
Yeah, we could deny the request this year and I think we have reasons why, and then they could either come back to the town council in some other way or figure out as an organization how to fund these improvements or benefits to their softball league.
Let's not forget, if they put in a new fence or they put in a batting cage, it's the use is not exclusive to the association. Anybody could use it, if there's some externality here. So that's something you need to consider. But I don't want to belabor it. I think you're right, Phil. I think we can move on. But it's just something we should be aware of, next year.
Yeah,
It's just,
Bill, I agree. I think that, because of the cuts that you're gonna have to make, this is one that's really on the edge here.
Yeah.
And if we have to go from 2.2, if you have to go from 2.2 down a bit, this makes sense to cut this.
Can I echo Joe Bertrand's comments, and I also think when folks come to you for a request, or they come like thinking from a FinCom perspective, feels a little bit like a wet noodle here. Like it could be this, it could be that, but it's a batting cage, and I just think they need to come with a more concrete, spelled out request.
True.
Yep. So our CPC, we okay in putting 0 here?
Yes.
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 Okay. Joe Conway, you did a good job supporting town council's support of this line item, so don't feel, we will.
Right.
We will tell them, anyone listening to this meeting will know that you defended
So-
it with all your might.
I do, when I send these things out, once we're getting ready to kick this process off, every year the message says, bring quotes, bring pictures, bring
Exactly.
details.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel out of all the departments, no offense, Joe, you do a good job. The library, for being such a small department, always does a great job about that. But
Can I?
and speaking of, I'm sorry, Frank, I was going to move on. Just
just
go.
a quick thing. Let's, in terms of getting specificity and so on. if a town council member showed up and advocated for this, would we have a different outcome here?
I don't know. It's too
Okay.
late for
Depends
it's
on
too
the
late for
strength of their argument.
hypotheticals, but
Well, I mean,
yeah, too late for hypotheticals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not
it
here.
depends on the town councilor. No, it doesn't. No, I think it comes down to the lack of specificity for this request in my eyes. I think that's the only thing, and maybe it's it being a new organization, maybe they just need to learn this and a little bit of a way of that. We just need a little bit more specifics, and then we'll see what happens. So
I mean, worst case
Yeah.
scenario too, like anything else that we've talked about here. If it's as simple as they have the mechanism to get whatever they're looking for,
Yep.
they need help on the labor end. I mean, that's
Right.
what my group does. We'd be happy to lend a hand in that regard. So,
yeah,
you know,
just
I
but-
don't,
yeah.
nothing's impossible. Might need to be a little bit more creative, but that's okay.
just thinking like to Tracy's points, other sports organizations have their own, money and fees and everything like that. And I know this is a young organization, so maybe it's just something that they're looking, this would help them. So why don't we move on and get, so the library reset. Joe, you want to talk about this note here about an
Yep.
earmark request? And does that mean we have to keep it in here to show what we would fund it in order for the earmark? Or are you saying that we could zero this out because of an earmark?
No, all right, my opinion and my opinion only. This has been, Steve is gonna submit this for inclusion in the state budget. This type of project, in my opinion, is something that if it were to be debated on the floor, something like this, it's very visible, a lot of public uses associated with it. If this was paired up against a project of something like more in the wheelhouse of my group that we bury and compact, you're probably gonna see this project go because it's pretty and beautiful and, you know, brings the community there. That being said, it's totally unknown. As an insurance, I would leave this alone if the group chooses to do so. And then should Steve's request be good, we might end up finding that there's a availability here that could be a conversation down the road where maybe the committee gets together and reappropriates something after the fact. We won't know until the budget's settled, unfortunately, but and then based off of, you know, I think how the conversation went last time, we all have good faith in, you know, the state and the budget and whatnot, but I don't think we'll put complete confidence in that because, you know, the unpredictability that is there. So this staying in there, almost best case scenario, we don't need it. Worst case scenario, you've built yourself in kind of an insurance policy to it. I think by the time we get to the end of the list from the tax levy side, this will fit in and should get us pretty much right to where Steve's goal is. So
Okay.
I'm
We
okay with that.
So let's keep it in. It needs
Yeah.
to get done. It's whether the states or we're doing it, it's 100% a needed project. So
I agree.
I'm a fan of keeping it in, and if we get money for it, then that's 70,000 that we can redirect to whatever ends up being considered our last out, right? Like that's
I want to thank Frank Leone for sending the pictures regarding this other topic, the driveway, for going out there and sending some info on that. That was helpful to see that. And it does appear that a patch and a reset can buy some time on that driveway. So keeping that zeroed, but just want to thank Frank for sending that info. We can take this one out, right? Because he said
Yep.
that's going to be part of something else. Oops, sorry. Do we had talked briefly in the earlier, we put 28 back in for this North Ave prospect?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
everyone okay with that?
yes.
What's this? Oh, I know what this is. This is going to this is the one going to the reserve fund, correct, Joe?
correct.
Right.
My only question.
Can you make a note?
Oh, you
A
reduced this. What's up,
notation that
Frank?
it's, can you make a notation and that it is going to a FinCom reserve? Thank you.
Yep. For this next one, Joe, so it was reduced, so 80, so this is just random. It's like a pool, they're looking for a pool of money to do a bunch of random ADA improvements, right? Like, there's no specific projects that this is going towards in the town that you could speak to?
No, there is. So a few years ago through this process, we asked the committee to fund a transition plan for us. So basically what that was is we looked at all the public buildings, all the door swings, all the door actuators, the pull weights, anything as far as transition, mobility from the lens of an ADA. And what we generated off of that is a punch list. So every building, we have some things that we know we have to do. In our building, we know one of the doors isn't wide enough. We have to make it wider. In the schools, we know that there's a couple places where we need to work on the mechanical pieces to the door to make the swings of a weight that is compliant. So basically what this really is a Kickstarter, so we could go through that plan and start working off that list and accomplishing goals. With the reduction here that we're recommending, we'll pick one building. We'll probably start with door work and railing work and go from there and stretch it as far as we can. And then when we finish, so let's say town hall, for example, just to use a building. When this building's done, we'll move on to the next one. What we want to do is get to the point where we're demonstrating that we've identified this and we're working towards completing our deficiencies. We mirror the same thing out on the road work. So every street that we do now all has handicap compliance and entrances. And really what it is so it's for mobility, obviously. But the other thing is too, is, for us to be able to demonstrate that we're putting a solid effort towards creating some of the challenges that are out there. So that, if we're ever, God forbid, to be called upon on it, we can demonstrate that we have recognized things and we're working towards getting all of our goals accomplished.
Then why not 50,000?
Just because of the tight budget that we have here, $25,000. Talking to the buildings folks and our engineers, we think that could get us a building out of it. We'll start there. Like I said, this is really going to kickstart this for us. We'll see how far we can stretch it, and then it'll probably end up be something that we either come back for another phase once we kind of know what our level of involvement in UNIS costs are going to be when we do holistic work through buildings. It could also be something where it might be appropriate for us to add it in as an operating line item in the DPW budget. Unfortunately, we didn't have the bandwidth there in our buildings group this year because we had some other things going on related to second shift and some of the expanded square footage of the buildings. So
Yeah, but be aware on line 86, we zeroed out a request for 75,000 for sidewalks and ramps. Why did we zero that out?
we'll end up doing that. We'll turn inside and try to do that in-house. Our highway division will do that.
Yeah, I think so. You have a document you're working on, like how do you budget for that document? Like, do you have no idea, like, is that a $500,000 plan to do all 88, the ADA improvements about in town, this list that you're going to be working off, like
Holistically,
yeah.
So all of it's written in there with a cost estimate to it too. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, so I can't speak to it. I probably should have sent it to you too. So that's my bad. Really much of it is, we know when we do door work, we've done a lot of it post-COVID, believe it or not, for a myriad of reasons. But we know, generally it costs us about, X amount per door. We have 10 doors. That's going to get us in. We kind of have it all united out. And then, some of the actuators and things like that, we know what the unit costs are. And we just do the math and run it through what the punch list is.
What do committee members think?
I would say leave it at that. Leave it there at 25.
I like to think that that I'm a strong advocate for complying with the ADA. It is really important to people who have mobility issues, and it seems like we're late in the game here, so, um, I would prefer the 50, but I'll settle for 25, but I'd go on the record and saying that I would like to expedite all ADA improvements.
But are we deficient in ADA? Have we been cited, or are there matters that have been raised by people affected by this that indicate that we're running behind on these projects?
Not that has been brought to our attention. One of the two biggest influences though, so building code changes. And then the other thing that's been changing is the occupancy of some of these buildings. So like we use the Civic Center as a great example. That building is a lot more dynamic than what it used to be.
Yeah,
So, you know, we're putting people and offices in different places of the building that, you know, have been retrofitted to accommodate that. We just want to make sure that, you know, all of the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted.
yeah.
Okay. It's,
So like a good example is this level of funding, we will be able to finish a building like the Greenwood Fire Station and the Post Academy. We'd be able to knock the punch list out there. Obviously, you know, the bigger that we go, the more involved it can get. But if you know anything, you know, our group is very aggressive in the grant world. So this is something that we're applying for every day.
I'm inclined to leave it at 25.
You know, and then another one, so the cemetery, the concept level cost estimate is $5,000. So when we're in there doing work operationally, my group will probably end up just picking that up as we're doing work. You know, and there's some other ones there. The Doll Bear Elementary School, the punch list that we have there, the estimate is between 10 and 15,000. So we'll maximize this and accomplish as much as we can in the triage list. And then, like I said, we'll be able to demonstrate that we're working towards, you know, completing this and vetting all this through.
Sam and Tracy, what are you thinking?
I think that, you know, I understand where Frank's coming from, and, you know, 50,000 goes along, you know, twice as far as 25. But you know, I wouldn't go lower than where it's at, and I think as long as we're committing to this is going to be sort of a regular annual request that we want to make sure that we're funding to keep projects rolling and getting stuff done, then you know, yeah, I have full support for doing ADA compliance stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if it's going to be rolling every year, which you know, with building code and with all the changes that we go with that we go through, then I think 25 is enough.
Again, we're dipping our toe in the water here too. So, you know, like I said, hopefully some of these higher level things, grants, we'll be able to pick up through community block or whatnot. And we won't be in here doing this, but this is just going to get us started and headed off in our direction.
Okay. So we have 25 in there. These next two line items we've zeroed out. Fueling station as a warrant article. Is that going to happen? Yep.
Yep. So that's going to be, I'll present on that at town meeting. What we're going to do is present the design work. I think I mentioned to this group, there's a cost savings, but potentially substantial by moving it. So we're going to explore that.
And the Walton we removed last meeting. We have it highlighted, but I'm not sure why. I thought we all did agree just to remove it. But is there any discussion? Does anyone have any second thoughts on this?
Nope, not a second thought.
No.
Hearing none. Townwide time and attendance software, $200,000 ask. We have that in there unhighlighted. I think we had agreed to keep it. This work order is highlighted. I think this is a desperate need to the town. I would hate to see this removed.
Mhm.
Obviously, some people would like, because if we do it, we get below 2 million, but this work order system is critical to the town for the, the
So
upkeep and the
I
tracking.
agree with
don't
that.
know.
I think our bottom line figure is, we really don't have Steve says one thing and FinCom is saying another, and we're in the window. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
I don't
So
think
here's my only suggestion with that. That is something we got very good numbers on. And I would recommend to change that line to 55,000
For a
Really?
work order system,
and it will become a lease. We'll finance it.
we have so many leases though.
Yeah.
I'd rather just pay for it,
We're
Joe.
closing in on $400,000 pretty soon.
I know.
So
Why
the
don't, why
way-
not just get it covered? And I hate adding to this lease.
So next,
Plus, it's an intangible asset. I mean, it could get, I don't know whether that makes me a little nervous there.
Why do you say that,
Uh,
Joe? I'm curious, Joe, why are you thinking that?
so what that'll end up doing is, so next year, the lease number will change. It'll go from 357 to 386. And then when we get into 27, it'll drop to 250, and then in 28. Over the next 2 years, that lease number is gonna dramatically change.
But-
So
But
How can
it-
you-
but
how
every
can you-
year, but every year we add more leases. So like, if you
Yeah,
looked
I-
at, if you looked at our lease schedule for FY 21, there was nothing on the schedule in these years. Like, we were going to zero, and look what's happened since then, right? Like, every year,
Yeah.
there's always these huge asks that we end up throwing on the lease so we can get it done. I
We're pre-
worry about adding to this number, but
We're presuming that nothing else gets added from,
Right.
you know,
Sorry, I
the
meant to
orbit
keep
of
that on.
Jupiter.
So the 200,000 figure is after we've spread the costs with the two enterprise funds. Is that correct?
correct.
correct, there's money here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's
Can they
money
take
here.
more? Can you justify more to them?
No, I'm actually gonna cut those numbers because those two, we're gonna be in a deficit this year.
Ouch.
Yeah. What are you gonna cut those to, you think? 25?
No, just globally. So,
No.
we'll get there in a minute.
Okay. I think we should keep it. I
Ah.
think this is a huge thing for the town to get a proper work order system. The fact that we don't have one in 2024 is a little concerning, so I think it's great that we're finally gonna get on it, if we can afford it, if the town can pull this off.
Who was the gentleman that made the case for this last week, the week before?
I think Joe Conway.
This was mine. So I had mentioned we do have one now. It got acquired, and what we have now is more custom than kind of, your canned delivery that you would see. So one of the things that we're afraid of is eventually we're not going to get supported, and to convert what we have set up into something new, we stand to probably lose. What this project will end up doing is tying all of our work orders into the main space where we manage all of our assets. So every time you touch a particular segment of pipe, we'll have all the records attached to it. You can see who's been there, who has the fingerprints on it, and whatnot. And then when we change things, it should update our map in live time.
Okay.
How long would a lease run on this, Joe?
I would do this
5.
one. I would do this one over 5, if it were me.
So it'd be $40,000 a year.
Now, come the fall, I think we talked about it when we were talking about the camera project for the school.
Yeah.
There is a grant through Compact Computers to potentially receive up to $200,000 in funding for this, that we intend to apply for, unless the school ends up needing to use it for their camera system. So there could be a situation here where if we were successful in that grant, that would come off the top of this list.
I don't know. He made a strong argument for that system, though. Was it the school department, right?
It was, no, it was Joe Conway, Frank, on our.
No,
at
no, no, on
DPW.
the Jeanette Tech camera system.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
talking
the
about
camera
that.
system.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
we're
was,
back on the
it,
work order.
it was Tim O'Brien.
Okay,
Yep.
So,
Tim.
so I'll put it this
Right.
way,
Got it.
based off of what I've heard in this whole process, that to me, if you told me I had to bet now, that's not moving. And that will be fully funded and they're gonna start constructing, which means now they won't be competing with me from the town of Wakefield applying for this grant in the fall. So I stand a better chance there. You know, if you put my needs in this up against what that camera system is gonna do, we would probably have, not as competitive as a grant. So I guess what I'm saying is we could show this as a lease for now. And then should we get that grant, that would offset the tax levy portion of it to the $200,000.
Right, but if we don't do a lease, the same thing would happen. That
Right.
if you got the grant, it would still offset. It doesn't offset only because it's a lease, correct?
No, we'd have to get the grant. Honestly,
Right.
I'm
I think we should just get, I think we should just pay for it.
I'm leaning that way.
I think our lease schedule scares me, Joe.
yeah, I don't particularly
Plus,
love
we
it.
plan to put another vehicle on there next year.
Right, there's gonna be, my history is that there's always a vehicle or two every year that ends up, which is why this is such a heavy. Like if I could pull up one from a couple years ago and show you that these years, a couple years ago looked like this, right? And so
Sure.
we started to add leases and now we got a year. So that's why I worry about the leases, because this just, it all comes off our bottom line. So it's just, it gives us less buying power, so to say, when we're trying to approve $9 million worth of asks. So I don't know, what do people think? Do we want to go to a lease? We could change this or keep it at 200. What's the
Yeah.
lease number?
55.
55,
55.
or keep it at 200.
I'll
I'd say I'm for keeping it at 200, but
tell you that both arguments are strong to me, but I have a question. If the technology changes over the next 5 years, over the time that a lease might run, if we bought it for 200,000 next year, do we miss out on that new technology? Or does it get upgraded by some contract arrangement?
We upgrade it every year. One of the things I think that drives the cost of what we're trying to do is we're looking for perpetuity licensing. So we own the ability to use
Yeah.
it forever instead of getting into the year over year,
Okay.
which still is an option.
So if the capital planning committee approved 200,000, right, Joe? Could
Yeah.
you go and lease it, or do you need the capital planning? Like, just because, I don't know, for whatever reason, you're like, you know what, we really just want to lease it. Could you do that unilaterally? Like, do you need the lease to be approved as part of this process?
And you keep the other 150 in your budget.
No, if we got the
Right.
200, we would buy it straight out. Well, we would enter into what we need to and perform. If we didn't, we wouldn't do anything outside of what the vote is here. So we would I'd say at this point, I'd probably either say, if we're comfortable leasing it, we'll lease it. If not, I'd remove it, and I'll roll the dice on the fall and see what happens.
Joe, I think we should give it to you. I mean, DPW is absorbing $4 million worth of work. You keep going, oh, forget that. We'll work it into our budget. Like,
Yeah,
50,000 for this, or 100, or for 200,000. I mean, the savings that we've made with the stuff that you've stepped up on, like, I feel like that's worth it. And I think we should be willing to go to bat with town meeting and the administration about a 2.175 when we've heard a range of anywhere from 2 to 2.3.
yeah.
If we lease that,
Well
what is
said.
it? Yeah, it is.
Any other comments on this?
So Sam, you're for keeping the 200,000 in?
Yeah,
Joe, you're gonna force us to give you money.
I would recommend to pull it.
I know, I'm
honestly.
only kidding. I'm only kidding.
That would be
I know
my
you're
recommendation.
you're recommending for us to pull it. We're forcing you to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I think pulling it, I don't know. I just see, I
So,
feel like this is such a
pull
huge
it-
need for the town.
So
Pulling it, I
keep it-
think has ramifications
that's
outside of
pretty
the money.
dramatic.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, my confidence level on the availability of the grant is pretty good. I would keep some of what we needed in water and sewer and probably start there. They're going to be the biggest. That'll take the most time to get in.
But if we
So
pull
what are you
it-
saying, Joe?
Remove the tax levy portion. And then we'll keep water and sewer as it is. So now I have the other two pieces that I need. And I'll just be waiting on the grant application, which will come in August. Excuse
And
me.
if you don't get it,
If I don't get it, then I'll probably be back again.
well,
So you do have, I mean, you have a working system. It seems to me that this is sort of like an upgrade.
This would be, exactly. We have something, like I said, we have something in place that works right now.
It's just not optimal.
Right. And that
So-
doesn't mean that it doesn't do what it needs to do. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be better. You know, we put in for this at the beginning of this whole process, not
So how many, in terms of getting this software system, how much does it free up for you? I mean, when you made the demonstration a week ago, you used that example from Main Street, North Ave and Nahant, that intersection, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
And you pointed to a sewer connection, and there was a set of information there. It was just that it was missing 2 or 3 pieces of information that would make your life a lot easier. So I guess what I'm asking is, how many resources would be freed up to your department?
It would probably just add to speed and ease of use, if anything. Because what it'll end up doing is having, you know, all the information that you could conceivably want housed in one spot. And you know, instead of 2 or maybe 3.
But you are keeping that information in 2 discrete places.
Correct. Yeah. So like if we put out a work order to fix a hydrant, the maintenance record on that hydrant is housed differently from where the asset is mapped.
Okay.
So if you
And
work,
how long does it take to retrieve that information? I mean,
it's not super long. It would just be understanding that you have 2 places to seek, you know, whatever you might be looking for.
Well,
I-
that brings us below 2 million, which makes me think that we need to add more money to this now.
Okay.
Well,
one more thing while we're on it. So the Genetech line for the schools,
yeah.
so that can be reduced to 88,800
well,
Yeah.
Why?
So
because the interest rate number now that is more likely going to be something that's executed on improved a slight bit.
So every year we've been we've been trying to go and improve money towards playgrounds. And this is the first year we don't have any money towards playgrounds. We had removed the Dole Bear because there were some complexities around the surrounding walkways and that being a bear of a project. So I don't like coming in below 2, in all honesty. I know the town would I know probably Steve would love this number, but I really feel we need to maximize our spending when we have $9 million worth of asks. Is there any other projects that people can think of the top of their head that we may have cut that you think we would have the ability to move back in? My only thought is the Dole Bear, because it's a playground and we've been really good in this committee trying to approve one every year. But if that's a bear
Well,
of
we
a
just had a-
project, yeah, then I get it.
Well, I'm looking at a, what, 125,000 for a rubber resurfacing, rubber surfacing? Is that what you're referring to?
For the Dole Bear,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
keep
you-
in mind that that will trigger another project for
Right.
my group that we don't have the
Ti-
funding for the survey to even know what the order of magnitude is on that.
So we couldn't even make up a number for that. Yeah.
You know, we just spent 20 minutes talking about that work order software. If you put back what Joe's idea is of a lease level, you would get you would get it above 2 million. And the concern we've got about the the growing lease burden really is not a serious problem if if you're only at 2 million already. So I think what do you think of that, Joe?
Was 55 what you said that lease would be,
Yeah.
Joe?
That's what that comes out to. Yes.
Okay, so
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If
I mean, the lease burden is not really harmed by doing this if we've got this budget down below $2 million, down to $2 million.
yeah. I'm fine adding that back in. I think it is. I think it's loading up our leases, but I think it's more important to have a new a central work order system.
What is the likelihood next year that this number is going to remain flat or even less than what we have this year?
What number? This
That's-
number?
yeah.
No.
The
Yeah.
tax levy
Let's-
number.
That's
let's-
why,
Let's
that's
hope
why
we
you
get
don't,
more.
yeah, that's why you don't want it below 2 million.
Yeah. Let's hope we get more. You know, ideally we'd be coming in heavier than this to show the need, but I get why we made the cuts. I don't want to add stuff in just for the sake of adding stuff in. So are people okay with these numbers? 55 as a lease and then 80 and then changing this to the 88.8.
Yep.
And then this number, is there any projects does FinCom have any questions? Joe or Lori, do you have any questions for us?
Can we,
Hearing our conversation. Oh, sorry, Joe.
no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can we just go into the enterprises for 2 seconds? I just got a couple of things we'll change in there. So prior year in sewer, that stays the same. That's essentially paying for our vac
Yep.
truck. And the cell phone system or the cellular way that we read water meters. We will be financing a dump truck for sewer through here. That 70,000 can be moved to 68.
Yep.
And then the last 2 lines can stay the same. Down in water, prior year unchanged. System improvements unchanged.
Yep.
The backhoe, if we could change that number to $62,000.
Would you
I'm gonna-
find one
we're
on
gonna-
the street?
No, we're gonna finance it over. We'll make 3 payments. So we'll pay them this year, next year, and the following year. And then water mains is going through borrowing, so that's not included. And I have a total of 254 there.
Who sets the caps on the enterprises?
So we budget for it. So the rates essentially set our operating expenses plus our capital. We probably would have come in a little bit heavier because we're trying to avoid borrowing to do capital, but with consumption being down, we essentially, deferred a lot of what we may have intended. So that all comes out of the water sewer budget and then the rate setting hearing in June.
Like, do we want to give fire prevention a truck?
Or a boat? No, just kidding.
No, we,
I think,
Got
the-
the
I
boat.
think the
Oh, we
boat
gave-
is still there.
We got
Yeah.
the boat. We kept the boat.
we got
Okay.
the,
Bigger
bo-
boat.
I want
We
the
need a
boat
bigger
in there.
boat. We're gonna
No.
need a bigger boat.
Boat is, right, I forgot the boat.
Um,
I'm just,
Can't
I'm
see
just,
the-
I'm just looking, again, I'm just doing a final peruse, because again, the goal would be to take a vote on this tonight as a committee, so I want to make sure if anyone has any sort of question marks or general comments about any of these, let's talk about it. We can scroll wherever.
Do you want to move
Um,
the pumper back onto the list?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, we're gonna pay for it one way or the other, right?
no,
Come
It's
in at
definitely a
3.
warrant article, I would guess, right?
yes, definitely.
That's a need. Yeah.
Did we want to do? We had pushed off the plow sander for next year, and we had talked about leasing it next year. You know, because there were things coming off the lease, and I go, Bill, and I realized that telling you to add a 4th thing on the lease schedule tonight would probably give you a heart attack. But what's the?
You know, that
We
would
wanted
be
to-
the steak and cheese sub I had for dinner. That's probably gonna give me the heart attack.
If
But,
I,
The
if
number
I
for
can,
this one right here,
if I can offer anything on that, I think we're appropriate deferring like we have right now. Let us see what we turn back on that grant in the fall, and then exploring this might be a different conversation next year.
Yeah.
But I think for now, we appreciate anybody advocating for us to replace some aging equipment.
Yep.
We're comfortable here as presented.
what do people think about fire prevention?
And there's a lot of mileage on that car left, on that vehicle, isn't there?
It was 80,000 miles, 80,000 miles
I
on it.
think he can wait another year.
We might have more ass next year. I'm just thinking if there's any way we could. I'm not a big fan. I'm just being the devil's advocate for it. I really am not one way or the other over it. We got our mowers.
Do you want to do
Okay.
both mowers?
I'd almost rather give the fire department a new truck rather than 2 mowers.
Yeah.
But again, if there was a
I think
choice,
that's
but
right,
I'm
yeah.
fine. You know. If not, we can just settle this list. Like this can be it. We don't have to look for something. I'm just
Yeah.
want to give us a final chance if there's something that's been on someone's mind that's cut out. This would be a time to bring it up.
I think we take a vote.
Phil?
Joe,
Yeah, I was just thinking because of many people mentioned the ADA. Possibly increase that to the 50 rather than the 25.
Yeah, I'd support that.
Yeah, good point.
yeah,
I know a couple of people mentioned that, and it seems like we do have the money, and there's a potential for that 70,000, isn't there? That may go away.
this
The optimist in
Yeah.
us says that hopefully that does not need to be expended, correct?
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
I would, and I'm not saying what you got people should do. I'm just,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I noted that people were in favor of increasing that ADA number.
I
And
think that's a good idea.
I think it's a good need and it's a good reason. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to go on the record as cutting ADA accessibility in town. You're right. Like if we can find the money and do
I'll
it
make
as
sure
much
it's
as
in the
we
minutes,
can.
Phil, just for
Yeah,
you.
put it in the minutes. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
It's
Joe.
okay, Phil. That's what I'm here for.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
Is the committee okay with 50?
Yes.
Yeah. Good move.
So this gives us $2,051,815.71. What is 71 cents, Joe? It's got to be one of the leases, right?
It's in the leases. Can you do me a favor?
Oh, there.
Our town accountant will appreciate this very much. Can you modify that so it's a round number? I think I'll round up to 16. I think I hit him one year to the second or third decibel, and
All right,
Yeah.
well, that's too much then. Now that's
Mhm.
29 cents more.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
that's
just
FinCom
burn
does
the-
not approve.
Bring the fire
Yeah,
department.
so if we're okay with this list, what we'll need is, we'll need 3 distinct motions. We'll need a motion, a second, and a vote on the tax levy, and then we'll vote, and then we'll need a motion, a second for the sewer division, and then we'll need to do this, the last for the water division. So I'll leave the amounts if someone is comfortable in doing it.
Sure. I'll make a motion that the committee approves a capital budget proposal of $2,051,816 to fund the projects above.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Frank, C,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Tracy,
yes,
and I'm a yes. Okay. Next one.
I make a motion for the sewer division enterprise for capital expenditure of $390,000.
a second.
Frank,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Tracy,
yes,
and I'm a yes. Last,
I make a motion that for the water division, we fund a capital expenditure of $254,000.
second,
Frank,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Tracy,
yes.
and I'm a yes. Good job, folks.
okay.
So,
that.
I guess it's just a housekeeping thing, so I will take this, obviously, Phil, I have the presentation put together. I'll add some pieces in, I'll send it to you, and Steve on an email, and we could talk about it. It's pretty much the same thing that we do every year.
Yeah.
Highlights a little bit, FinCom and the TC will see this list. The only thing that I will do is I will condense it down, so anything that was removed will not appear. We'll only see what's going forward. And the only other thing too, like where I list a 2012 dump truck with plow, it will now show 2024.
Right.
So
Yeah, because you
we
always
had
field the
it-
same question every year where someone
Yeah.
asks you why a
Why you buying a-
2012 truck
yeah.
costs so much. Yeah,
why you
and you
buying
have
a
to explain it.
40-year-old vehicle or
Exactly.
something?
Yeah.
Um,
Can you remind me the dates? Is it Monday that I have to present to town council?
Monday, Thursday, yes.
And then Thursday
I'll-
is FinCom?
correct. I'll confirm and I'll include that in what I send back out to you.
And
Joe,
Joe,
you
send
get
that
to see me again, Joe.
Joe, send that to me as well, because I will appear before the town council.
Yep.
And
So-
also before the FinCom will make a presentation, and I will also argue that we should be spending 2.3 and not 2.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
I'll
And Joe,
include you
could
in
you
all of
make
them.
sure you speak to Steve tomorrow on the reserve fund transfer?
I'll talk to him about that tomorrow.
Traffic signal thing, okay?
Yep. Will
All
do.
right. All right. And by the way, everyone, great job working on this.
Well, thank you. You were very helpful in providing guidance that was much needed and clarifying a lot of things. It's much appreciated.
All right.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, take care, everybody.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, hold on, everyone. We gotta officially adjourn, but Frank Leone, you got anything you gotta say? Say good luck, good job.
Good luck. Great job, everybody. Good luck.
Hey, Frank Leone, thanks a lot for being
Yeah,
in there all the time.
Okay, thank
Bringing your
you.
brains.
Okay, a motion to adjourn, please.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Okay. Well, good night.